Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're asking the question of why was there only one truly Psyker Primarch? Why didn't the Emperor make a backup to Magnus the Red? A general spoiler warning to begin here, as today I will be referencing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so for all the greatness of each one of the Primarchs, and for all our own personal favouritism, I think it's pretty inarguable that it was Magnus the Red who was the most unique, and the most crucial to the Emperor's plan. For all the roles, abilities and skills of the rest, there was only Magnus who was made to sit upon the Golden Throne, who was the second most powerful Psyker in the galaxy. To be, as Malcador described in the End and the Death Volume 1, the Contingency. His memories are Antarctic bright. The day he first showed me the throne, and told me what it did. The shining look of disbelief in my eyes. The evening when we both realised that I could moderate its functions too. That my mind, like his, had the capacity to engage with it and not instantly perish. The night when we concluded through plain logical deduction that there might come a day when I would have to take his place. In almost every configuration of the future we could model, someone would have to do it. I was not afraid. Not then. Not now. I knew what that would mean. I brushed it off as a thing that would have to happen if it came to it. He hoped it never would, because he knew what it would mean too. And for the longest time, it seemed unlikely. He had built a contingency to avoid it ever becoming compulsory. The contingency's name was Magnus. And we know how it would end. With Magnus's fall, the Emperor would become essentially imprisoned upon the Golden Throne, no one able to permanently replace him. It was why Malcador would have to sacrifice himself. And so it does raise the question, why was there only one Magnus the Red? Why did the Emperor only create one Psyker with his kind of power? When virtually all the other Primarchs have traits and roles that overlap with each other, why did the Emperor only make one true Psyker? Yes, Lorgar was a powerful Psyker too eventually, but let's be clear, he was nothing compared to Magnus. So when we know the Emperor had backups and contingencies for all his other Primarchs, why not the most important one? Surely it doesn't make sense, given everything we know of the Emperor. So what could be the reason? And look, in all likelihood, yes, it's simply because he just didn't. The Emperor's confidence as always galaxy-wide. He probably never even remotely considered any problems arising with Magnus. One throne, one Psyker. That was it. However, if there was a real reason for it, well, let's begin with maybe the Emperor couldn't make more than one. Maybe the process of making Magnus was much harder than making the others. More complicated, more time-consuming, a much bigger investment of time and resources. I don't think that's inconceivable, given I distinctly remember somewhere in the lore that Magnus mentioned he was aware of his own creation. No other Primarch has related such a tale, so you can really feel Magnus's uniqueness here with his mind. And it's not just Magnus is a Psyker, it's that he was the second most powerful Psyker in existence, second only to the Emperor. So surely that's a trickier creation to make. Not as simple or straightforward as, say, a Rogel Dawn, a Rabute, who have virtually no psychic ability at all. Or even say a Lorgar, who does. And maybe if it was more intricate and complicated, you would assume it was more time-consuming too. And if there's any frustration that we've always known the Emperor had, it was a lack of time. Again and again throughout the Heresy series, it is reinforced how everything was rushed, how the Emperor didn't have time to do things how he would have liked to, or preferred. And so, it's entirely reasonable if Magnus's creation was more time-consuming due to that vast psychic power. Well, that's an investment of time the Emperor simply couldn't keep spending. And so Magnus became the only Primarch capable of assuming the throne. A calculated risk. Heck, maybe whatever warp essence he infused into the Primarchs was limited. And if so, maybe in creating a Primarch with the level of Magnus's power required more. And so there wasn't enough to spend on making another. With so much of the Primarch's creation a mystery, we can't rule it out. So I'd say a simple he couldn't make another Magnus level Psyker Primarch is definitely a possibility, for one reason or another. Now, the second possible and most logical explanation for me has to be it was too dangerous to create another. We have seen that Magnus's power was immense, truly formidable. While he wasn't at Emperor levels, he was still a risk if he fell, a prospect that could be a real danger. I mean, take the moment the Emperor offers Magnus redemption within the novel Fury of Magnus. He does it because Magnus alone guarantees him victory. That is how powerful Magnus's ability is. It is a simple thing, said the Emperor, and Magnus saw the tremors of strain at his brow. A measure of how much psychic effort it was taking him to communicate so directly. Swear your oath of fealty to me once again, take your rightful place at my side, and our combined powers will drive the betrayers from Terra. We will destroy them, and usher in a new era of crusade. And so having two of those possible problems combined, two unparalleled Psykers against him, heck, maybe that could be too much for even the Emperor to stop, and as such a risk too great to take. Which makes sense when the Emperor was using the warp to create them. As much as he might have been confident in these future creations, he couldn't be completely 100% sure in them. And I'm absolutely certain that the Sigillite wasn't. And I'm willing to bet the Psyker, Magnus, was the most doubtful, considering that extra attachment and exposure to the warp. And so with Magnus being more powerful, more of a threat, and with it being possible he could fall to chaos more easily than any other, I think you could definitely argue making two Primarchs of his power was simply too dangerous. Too much of a gamble, on top of the gamble he was already making. However, moving on, reason number 3, rather than he couldn't or it was too dangerous, maybe the Emperor did make two Magnus level Psykers amongst the Primarchs. Maybe one of the lost Primarchs was one. Wouldn't that make sense? When the Emperor we know has made backups and redundancies across all the Primarchs, when the Golden Throne was so important to his grand plan, isn't it so completely illogical and against everything we know of him that it makes it far more likely he actually did make 2. And doesn't the Lost Primarchs make that a distinct possibility? Provide the perfect explanation? I mean, come on, you've got to say yes here. Maybe even both of them were Psykers, and maybe that was why they failed in some way. We saw the trouble Magnus's sons had with the flesh change, how their legion was unsavable, as quoted in Fury of Magnus. Maybe that was the reason for one or both of them failing. It's definitely a more in-depth conversation we need to have, which we'll do later this week, but it is a possibility for me. I'm not sure the Emperor would have made 3 Primarchs of Magnus's level power who could assume the throne, as I think the danger aspect is legit, but 2 of them, absolutely. It fits with everything we know of him, and it being one of the Lost Primarchs makes it all possible, even logical. So, explanation 1. We have he couldn't make another Magnus level Psyker for one reason or another. Explanation 2. It was too dangerous to make another. That 2 Magnuses, if you will, could pose too big a threat if turned against him. And explanation 3. We have he did make 2, and one was in fact one of the Lost Primarchs. For me, these are the most logical suggestions as to why, strangely, Magnus was the only Primarch with no alternative, and I could easily see all being an option. But if I had to pick just one, it's hard as all of them definitely work. I love the idea of one of the Lost Primarchs being one, but I think I'm going to land with, for now at least, it was simply too dangerous to have more than one. The Primarch project was a huge gamble, creating 20 beings of insane power, unleashing them across the galaxy at the head of a legion, and Magnus's psychic power was a gamble on top of that, more unpredictable on how it would go, what would happen, and simply it was more of a threat. A Primarch that could most likely be Malcador in his prime, and so having 2 of them was just too risky. And so, if it wasn't the most probable because the Emperor simply just didn't, I'd go with it was too dangerous to have more than one. And so, as always everyone, what do you think? Why do you think there was no alternative to Magnus the Red? Why did the Emperor only make one Primarch who could sit upon the Golden Throne? Was it his ego was simply too confident to make another? Or are the 3 reasons I mentioned here today possible? Was it that he couldn't make another Primarch of Magnus's power, for one reason or another? Was it that it was too dangerous to have 2 of them? Or did he in fact make 2, and one was one of the Lost Primarchs? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too? But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.